I was 11 when I learned that love could be measured in dollars and sequins. The recital money sat in a glass jar on the kitchen counter for 3 months. I counted it every morning before school, crumpled 5s, smooth 10s, the occasional 20 from Dad's overtime shifts. $247. Enough for the pale blue dress with the silver trim I'd seen at the dance shop. The one that caught light when you spun. Enough for proper point shoes that didn't pinch my toes bloody. Enough to look like I belonged on that stage. Mum kept adding to it, her fingers lingering on the bills before dropping them through the slot. For my Lily, she'd say, for your big moment. The regional competition was 8 weeks away. I practiced until my feet bled through my socks, until the living room floorboards memorized my patterns. Grand jeté, pirouette, arabesque, again and again until muscle memory replaced thought. This was my chance. Scouts would be there, real ones from the City Academy. The kind of place where dance wasn't just a hobby you'd outgrow. Emma watched from the doorway sometimes, younger by 3 years, her face unreadable. She did community theatre, the kind where everyone got participation ribbons and parents clapped regardless. She was good at it, I suppose. Loud, anyway, confident in the way people are when they've never had to earn attention. 6 weeks before my recital, Emma came home with a script. The theatre director had cast her as Dorothy in their spring production of The Wizard of Oz. She squealed. Mum squealed. Dad looked up from his newspaper and smiled. "There's a costume," Emma said at dinner, her voice careful. "A real one. Blue gingham dress, ruby slippers. They rent them from the costume house in the city, but Mum, the director said I could buy it if I wanted. To keep. Other girls from the programme might want it after, and..." "How much?" Dad asked. $300. The kitchen went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "That's a lot, sweetheart," Mum said, but her eyes were soft. "I know, but I'd be Dorothy. The Dorothy in front of everyone." I watched my mother's face do something I'd seen before, but never named. A calculation. A weighing. Emma's eyes were so bright, so certain of her answer. "We'll figure it out," Mum said. 4 weeks before my recital, the jar disappeared. I came home from practice, 5 hours at the studio because I was perfecting the closing sequence, and the counter was bare. Just a ring of dust where the glass had sat. "Mum?" My voice echoed through the empty house. She came out of Emma's room carrying the blue gingham dress on a hanger, ruby slippers dangling from her other hand. The shoes caught the hallway light, throwing red fractals across the wall. "Isn't it perfect?" she said. "Emma tried it on and it's like it was made for her." My throat closed. "The jar." "Oh." She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Honey, we'll get you something nice, too. There's a sale at the department store next week. That was my recital money. And you'll still have your recital. You don't need an expensive dress to dance, Lily. Your talent is what matters, but Emma, this is her first lead role. She needs to look the part. You understand?" I understood. I understood that Emma's theatre production had sold maybe 30 tickets, mostly to parents. I understood that my competition had scouts who could change my entire future. I understood that none of that mattered. "What do I wear?" My voice came out flat. "You have that black leotard. It's classic." Classic. The word people used when they meant cheap. 3 weeks before my recital, I stopped practicing in the living room. I went to the studio early, stayed late, and did my homework in the dressing room. At home, I was quiet. Pleasant. I smiled when Emma practiced her lines in the living room, her voice carrying through the whole house. I smiled when Mum adjusted the costume, pinning the waist, hemming the skirt. I smiled when Dad said, "My little Dorothy," and Emma curtsied in her ruby slippers. I smiled through all of it because I had learned that being angry meant being difficult, and difficult daughters got even less. 2 weeks before my recital, my dance teacher, Miss Catherine, pulled me aside. "Lily, you're dancing beautifully, but you seem distant. Is everything all right?" I told her I was fine. I told her I was focused. I didn't tell her that I'd started eating less because groceries had gotten tight after the costume purchase. I didn't tell her that my point shoes were held together with electrical tape because there was no money for new ones. I didn't tell her that I'd stopped sleeping well because I kept having the same dream. Me on stage in my black leotard under bright lights, surrounded by girls in costumes that cost more than my family's monthly grocery bill, looking like exactly what I was. The girl no one invested in. The night before my recital, Emma's production opened. We all went, Mum, Dad, me. Emma was radiant in her costume, spinning in her ruby slippers, singing about rainbows. The audience applauded. My parents stood proud and beaming. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep against my shoulder, still wearing stage makeup. Mum turned around from the front seat. "You're up tomorrow, honey. Are you excited?" "Yes," I said. "You'll be wonderful," she said. "You always are." The recital was at 2 p.m. I arrived at noon for warm-up, carrying my black leotard in a grocery bag. Around me, girls unpacked professional costumes from garment bags, their mothers fussing with hair and makeup. I changed in the corner, avoiding mirrors. The competition had 3 divisions. I was in the advanced youth category, 12 girls, all between 11 and 13. I'd seen their rehearsal videos. They were good, very good. 2 of them trained at the same city academy I was hoping to get into. When they called my number, I walked onto that stage in my black leotard and taped together shoes. The lights were exactly as hot as I'd imagined. The audience was exactly as large. The scouts sat in the 3rd row with clipboards, their faces neutral and professional. I danced my heart out. Every extension perfect, every turn clean, every landing silent. I danced like I was proving something, because I was. I danced like it was my last chance, because it felt like it was. When I finished, the applause was polite, encouraging, the kind that says good job, but not exceptional. I took 5th place. 4th place went to a girl in a hand-sewn costume. 3rd place went to a girl whose mother owned the studio. 1st and 2nd went to the girls from the City Academy, both wearing costumes that probably cost more than my family's rent. The scout from the academy stopped me on my way out. "You have lovely lines," she said. "Real potential. Have you considered applying for our summer intensive?" "How much is it?" I asked. $3,500 for 6 weeks. Full training, room and board included. I thanked her and walked away. Mum picked me up at 5. Emma was in the back seat, still in her costume from last night's production. She had another show that evening. "How did it go?" Mum asked. 5th place. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry, but 5th out of 12 is still good. Were the judges fair?" I looked out the window. Very fair. At home, I put my medal in my desk drawer and closed it. I took off my leotard and shoes, wrapped them in the grocery bag, and pushed them to the back of my closet. That night at dinner, we talked about Emma's performance, how she'd gotten a standing ovation during her curtain call, how the director said she was a natural. "We should celebrate both our girls," Dad said, like he'd just remembered I existed. "How about ice cream?" "I'm tired," I said. "I think I'll just go to bed." I lay in my room, listening to them drive away without me, listening to the house settle into silence. I was 11 years old, and I felt ancient. I felt used up. I felt like I'd learned a truth that would follow me forever. That love, real love, the kind that showed up in actions instead of words, was always going to go to whoever asked for it loudest. 3 months later, I quit dance. Told Miss Catherine my body was changing and I didn't have the right proportions anymore. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But she did it push. She hugged me and said if I ever wanted to come back, the door was open. I never walked through it again. High school passed in a blur of acceptable grades and extracurricular activities chosen for college applications. Not passion. I was pleasant. I was easy. I didn't ask for things because I'd learned that asking meant being disappointed. Emma did 3 more theatre productions. Mum and Dad went to every single one. They never asked why I stopped dancing. I went to a state school on a partial academic scholarship, studied business because it was practical, dated a boy named Ryan for 2 years because he was there and he was nice, and I didn't know how to want anything for myself anymore. We broke up senior year when he said I was emotionally unavailable. He wasn't wrong. After graduation, I got a job at a marketing firm in the city. 60-hour weeks, decent pay, a studio apartment with thin walls. Emma went to a performing arts college on a full ride. She was talented, I had to admit that. We texted occasionally. Birthday wishes, holiday greetings, the kind of relationship that looked fine from the outside. I was 26 when Mum called and asked if I'd come home for Thanksgiving. Emma would be there with her new boyfriend, a theatre director she'd met during a showcase. It would mean so much to have both my girls together, she said. I went because it was easier than explaining why I didn't want to. The dinner was exactly what I expected. Emma and her boyfriend dominated conversation, telling stories about their upcoming production, how they were innovating regional theatre, how passionate they were about the arts. Mum and Dad hung on every word. "Lily, you're quiet," Emma said, like she was just noticing. "How's work?" "Good. Busy." "Still doing the marketing thing?" The marketing thing. As if my career was a phase. "Yes." "Don't you ever think about doing something more fulfilling?" I looked at her across the table, at her animated face and expressive hands, and the way everyone leaned toward her when she spoke. And I felt something shift in my chest, something cold and final. "I find my work very fulfilling," I said. After dinner, I helped Mum with dishes. Emma and her boyfriend went for a walk. Dad dozed on the couch. In the kitchen, surrounded by suds and the smell of turkey, Mom said, "I'm glad you came, honey. We don't see enough of you." "I'm pretty far away." "I know, but still, you're so independent. You always have been. Never needed much attention." She said it like a compliment. I dried a plate slowly, carefully. "Do you remember my dance recital? The regional competition when I was 11? She looked up, surprised. "Of course, you did wonderfully." "Do you remember what I wore?" Her hand stilled in the water. A long pause. "Your black leotard." "Do you remember why?" Another pause, longer. "Lily, that was 15 years ago. You spent my recital money on Emma's costume, the Dorothy costume, for a community theatre production." The water ran, the faucet dripped, the refrigerator hummed. "We made it up to you," she said finally. "We got you that nice dress for homecoming junior year." I bought that dress with my own money from my job at the grocery store. "Did you?" She sounded genuinely confused. "Well, I'm sure we contributed." I put down the dish towel. "I'm going to head out. Early drive back tomorrow." "Already? But Emma wanted to have breakfast together. Tell her I had to work." I left before she could respond, drove back to my apartment through empty highways, arrived at 2 a.m, and sat in my car in the parking garage, crying for the first time in years. Not sad crying, angry crying, the kind that leaves you hollow and clean. I was 27 when the headaches started, persistent right behind my left eye. I ignored them until I couldn't anymore. The doctor ordered scans. The scans showed shadows. The shadows were a tumour, inoperable, wrapped around something vital. 6 months, maybe 8. I told my parents over the phone because I couldn't bear to see their faces. Mum cried. Dad was silent. Emma came to visit twice, both times bringing her boyfriend, both times treating my apartment like a stage for their caregiving performance. I spent my last months putting things in order. Will, arrangements, donations. I was efficient about dying the way I'd been efficient about living. On my last day of work, my boss said I'd been the best employee he'd had in 20 years. Reliable, never complained, always delivered. I moved back home for the final month because I was too weak to manage alone. Emma took leave from her theatre to help. She was good at it, actually. Gentle. Attentive. She read to me, brought me water, sat with me during the bad hours. "I'm sorry you're going through this," she said one night when it was just us. "It's okay," I said, because I was tired and there was no point in being anything else. "You were always so strong, Lily. So independent. I admired that." I looked at her in the dim light of the bedside lamp. "I was never strong. I was just quiet." She didn't understand the difference. The end came quietly, like I'd lived. No dramatic last words, no profound realizations, just a gradual fading, a slow dimming until there was nothing but silence and the sensation of letting go. And then light, not white light, not tunnel light, just light, morning light, coming through curtains I recognized. I opened my eyes. My bedroom, my childhood bedroom. The walls still painted the pale yellow I'd begged for when I was 10. The ceiling still had the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd arranged to match Orion. My bookshelf with its collection of dance magazines and worn paperbacks. I sat up. My body felt different. Smaller, lighter. I looked down at my hands. Child hands, unmarked by time or work, or the IV lines that had bruised them purple in those final weeks. On my desk, a calendar. March 15th. My 11th birthday had been 2 weeks ago, 6 months before the recital. I got out of bed on steady legs and walked to the mirror. My 11-year-old face looked back at me, eyes wide with an understanding no 11-year-old should have. I lifted my hand and watched my reflection lift hers. Real. This was real. The knowledge sat in me with perfect clarity. I had lived 27 years, died at 28, and been given this. A second chance. Not to change the world. Not to save anyone. Just to choose differently. I heard Mum downstairs, the clatter of breakfast dishes. Emma's voice, high and cheerful, asking for pancakes. Dad's newspaper rustling. The ordinary sounds of a Saturday morning in a house that didn't yet know what it would cost me to live there. I looked at myself in the mirror one more time. "Not this time," I whispered. The first change was small. When I came downstairs, Mum asked if I wanted to go to the dance shop to look at recital costumes. "Not yet," I said. "I want to make sure I'm ready for the competition first. Maybe closer to the date." She looked surprised, but nodded. "That's very mature, honey." The jar appeared on the counter a week later. I watched them add to it. Mum's tips from the diner, Dad's overtime, even Emma's allowance once, Mum made her. The bills piled up slowly, steadily. I practiced differently this time. More focused, less desperate. I knew what my body could do now, what it couldn't. I worked within my limits, refined my strengths. Miss Catherine noticed. "Something's changed, Lily. You're dancing like a professional." "I'm just taking it seriously," I said. In May, 6 weeks before my recital, Emma came home with the script. The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, the costume. I watched it happen like watching a play I'd memorized. Her excitement, Mom's calculation, Dad's thoughtful silence. "How much?" Dad asked right on cue. 300, I put down my fork. "That's a lot for a costume you'll wear 4 times. Everyone looked at me. I'd never commented on Emma's theatre things before. "The director said other girls in the programme could use it after," Emma said, defensive. "Then the director should buy it for the programme." I kept my voice even. "Or you could rent it for $50. That's what theatre companies do." "Lily," Mum said, her tone warning. "I'm just saying, it's a lot of money. We're all contributing to the jar for my recital." I looked at Dad. "Isn't that what you said? That we were all working together as a family for my big moment?" The silence was different this time, uncomfortable. Your sister has a point, Dad said slowly. 300 is steep. What are the rental options, Emma? Emma's face crumpled. But all the other Dorothys have owned their costumes. All the other Dorothys aren't our daughter, I said. Rental is fine. Mum looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Something in her expression was almost respect. We'll look into rental, she said finally. Emma stormed to her room. Mum followed. Dad stayed at the table with me. That was different for you, he said, speaking up like that. I'm tired of being the easy one, I said. He smiled. Good. The jar stayed on the counter. 4 weeks before my recital, I went to the dance shop with Mum and bought the pale blue dress with silver trim. It fit perfectly, cinched at the waist and fluttering at the knee. The kind of dress that catches stage lights and holds them. You look beautiful, Mum said, and there were tears in her eyes. We bought proper point shoes too. 2 pairs, professionally fitted. At home, Emma sat on the couch in her rented Dorothy costume, serviceable blue gingham that looked like every other production's Dorothy costume. She glanced at my garment bag. New dress? For regionals? Must be nice, she said, and there was something sharp under the words. It is, I said. You should see it. Mum, should I show her? I didn't wait for an answer. I went to my room, changed into the dress and new point shoes, and came back downstairs. Did a small pirouette in the living room, the skirt floating, the silver trim catching light. Emma stared. Mum stared. Dad looked up from his paper and said, Now that's a costume. It's not a costume, sir, I said. It's competition wear, for serious dancers. The distinction landed. Emma's production came and went. We attended. I insisted. She was good, genuinely talented, and I clapped for her curtain call. On the drive home, Mum asked if I was nervous about my competition. No, I said. I'm ready. The day of the recital, I arrived early, changed into my dress in a dressing room that felt familiar and foreign at once. Around me, the same girls in the same expensive costumes. But this time, I belonged. This time, I looked the part. The competition unfolded exactly as I remembered. Same routines, same judges, same scouts in the third row. But when they called my number, I walked onto that stage different. Not desperate, not proving anything, just dancing because I knew how good I was. The music started. My body remembered every step, every breath. But more than that, I danced with the knowledge of someone who'd lived an entire life, who knew exactly what this moment was worth, who knew exactly what came after if I gave up. I danced for the girl in the black leotard who'd been told her talent was enough. I danced for the woman who'd spent 15 years being easy and quiet and emotionally unavailable. I danced for myself finally, completely, without apology. When I finished, the applause was different. Longer, louder, real. I took first place. The scout from the academy found me immediately. That was extraordinary. Have you applied for our summer intensive? Not yet, I said, but I will. Please do. We want dancers like you. She handed me her card. Scholarships are available for students with exceptional talent. I'll make sure you're considered. Mum cried when they put the medal around my neck. Happy tears, proud tears, the kind of tears I'd wanted when I was 11 the first time. On the drive home, Emma was quiet in the back seat. No costume today, just regular clothes and the slumped posture of someone who'd gotten used to being the centre of attention. That was amazing, honey, Dad said. Really something special. Thanks, I said. We should celebrate, Mum said. How about ice cream? Actually, I said, I'd like to go home and rest. It's been a long day. They looked surprised but agreed. At home, I changed out of my dress carefully, hung it in my closet where I could see it. put my medal on my dresser where the morning light would hit it, took off my point shoes and examined them. Barely scuffed, still perfect. Emma appeared in my doorway. "Can I come in?" "Sure." She sat on my bed, picking at the comforter. "Yes, you were really good today." "Thank you. Better than my Dorothy." "They're different things," I said. "You don't have to compare." "Mom and Dad did." I looked at her, 8 years old, small for her age, used to being the one people notice. "They compared us?" "After you left the theatre that night. Mom said I was better at performing for crowds, that you were more technical, but I had more stage presence." Something in my chest tightened. They shouldn't have said that. "Were you mad? When they spent your jar money on my costume?" The question I'd waited 15 years to be asked. "Yes," I said. "I was very mad." "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I thought there was enough for both." There wasn't. There's never enough when one person always gets priority. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her face I'd never noticed before. Guilt. Real guilt. The kind that meant she'd always known, somewhere, that things weren't equal. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know." "Are you going to keep dancing?" "Yes." "What if you get into that academy? What if you're gone all summer?" "Then I'll be gone all summer." "But what about us? The family?" I sat down next to her on the bed, this sister who'd taken up so much space in my life without meaning to, and said something I couldn't have said at 11. "Emma, you're 8. You have a family that shows up for you. That's good. That's how it should be. But I need to show up for myself now. Do you understand?" She nodded, even though I knew she didn't really. But someday she would. That summer, I went to the Academy's 6-week intensive on a full scholarship. Trained 8 hours a day with the best teachers in the state. Came home with new strength, new technique, and 3 more competition medals. At the end of summer showcase, Mum and Dad sat in the front row. Emma sat between them, watching me dance a solo I'd choreographed myself. When I finished, they all stood. All 3 of them. After, in the parking lot, Emma ran up and hugged me. "You were so good. Can you teach me some of those moves?" "They're ballet moves," I said. "For your theatre stuff, you'd want jazz or contemporary." "Oh," she looked disappointed. "But I could show you some basics. If you want?" Her face lit up. "Really?" "Sure." In the car, Mom turned around from the front seat. "I'm proud of you, Lily. The way you've committed to this. The way you've stood up for yourself." "Thanks, Mum. I know we haven't always..." She paused, choosing words. "I know sometimes we got distracted by the louder moments. But we see you now. We really see you." "I know you do," I said, and meant it. But the truth was, I didn't need them to see me anymore. I'd learned to see myself. The years unfolded differently this time. I got into the City Academy for high school, graduated top of my class, danced professionally for a company in New York. Small roles at first, then bigger ones. Never prima ballerina, I was realistic about my limits, but solid course, occasional soloist. A career, real and sustaining. Emma went to her performing arts college on her full ride. We stayed in touch, really in touch, texting about auditions and rehearsals and the specific exhaustion of performance life. She came to my shows. I went to hers. We were sisters in a way we'd never been before. When I was 26, the age I'd been when the headaches started the first time, I woke up one morning and felt afraid. Just for a moment, just long enough to remember. But the headaches never came. I lived, really lived. Danced until my body told me it was time to stop at 34, then transitioned into choreography. Met someone, a lighting designer named Marcus, and learned what it meant to be chosen by someone who saw me completely. Married at 36, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Emma came to the wedding with her husband, an accountant she'd met at a mutual friend's party. She'd left theatre after college, worked in arts administration now. Said she was happier this way. I believed her. At the reception, Mom pulled me aside. I need to tell you something. Okay. Your father and we've talked about this a lot over the years. About that recital, the costume money. We thought we were making the right choice at the time, but... Mom, I interrupted gently. It's okay. It's not okay. We chose wrong. We chose Emma because she was louder, more demanding, and you were always so easy, so understanding. We took advantage of that. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Lily. We should have protected your dreams the same way we protected hers. I looked at my mother, older now, grey threading through her hair, her face lined with years I'd lived twice. The thing is, Mum, if you'd made the right choice then, I wouldn't have learned to make my own. I wouldn't have learned that I couldn't rely on anyone else to value my dreams for me. That's a hard lesson for an 11-year-old. It was, but it was necessary. She hugged me then, tight and long. When she pulled back, she said, "You turned out so strong, so independent." "I'm not independent," I said. "I just learned when to fight." Later that night, at the end of the reception, I found Emma smoking a cigarette outside the venue, something she did when stressed. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About?" "About how different we are, how different our lives turned out." She took a drag, exhaled slowly. "You became everything you wanted to." So did you. Did I? I'm not on BAMs and stages anymore. I'm answering emails and filing grant applications. "Are you happy?" She considered it. "Yeah, actually, but sometimes I wonder if I gave up too easily, if I'd fought harder." "Emma," I said, "you can't spend your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been different. You were who you were. You wanted what you wanted. It brought you here. Is here bad?" "No," she admitted. "Here's pretty good." "Then that's enough." We stood in comfortable silence, watching guests drift to their cars, the venue lights starting to dim. "Can I tell you something?" Emma said. "Something I felt guilty about forever." "Sure." "That costume. The Dorothy one. I knew Mom was going to use your jar money. She asked me if I really needed to own it, and I said yes, even though I knew we could rent. I wanted it so badly I didn't care what it cost you." I'd known this, of course, in my first life and this one, but hearing her say it out loud mattered. "We were kids," I said. "Kids are selfish. It's normal." "You weren't." "I learned to be." She laughed, surprised. "Yeah, you did." "The thing is, Emma, I'm not mad anymore. I was for a long time, longer than I should have been. But being angry at you or Mom or Dad, it was just taking up space I needed for other things." "Like what?" "Like this." I gestured at the venue, the remnants of my wedding, the life I'd built step by careful step. "Like dancing, like Marcus, like choosing myself over and over until it became habit." Emma stubbed out her cigarette. "I'm glad you came back." "Came back?" "You know what I mean. For a long time after you moved away, you were just gone. And then something changed. You started showing up, being present. I never knew what caused it, but I'm glad it happened." I smiled. "Me too." We went back inside, danced together during the last song, sisters spinning under disco lights, laughing at nothing and everything. When the DJ called Last Dance, Marcus found me and pulled me close. "Happy?" he asked. "Very." "No regrets?" I thought about the girl in the black leotard, the woman who died bitter and quiet, the child who'd woken up with a second chance and used it. None, I said. Not a single one. The music played, we danced, and in the morning, I would wake up in my own life, the one I'd chosen, the one I'd fought for, and it would be enough. It would be more than enough. It would be mine.